Transporting hazardous materials across the high deserts and mountain passes of New Mexico, from the busy I-40 corridor to the border crossings near El Paso, requires sharp attention to both safety and security. Let's make sure you are ready for the New Mexico MVD. What federal regulation governs hazmat transport by road in New Mexico? 49 CFR Parts 100 to 185 Hazardous Materials Regulations administered by PHMSA. These are the federal guidelines that keep hazmat transportation consistent across the country. Next question. What state agency enforces hazmat transportation on New Mexico highways? New Mexico State Police in coordination with federal PHMSA and FMCSA. The state police ensure everyone is following the safety rules on New Mexico's roads. Let's move on. What endorsement permits a CDL holder to transport hazmat in New Mexico? H endorsement requiring TSA threat assessment and written knowledge test. This is the specific credential you need to legally haul hazardous cargo. Next point. What federal agency conducts the hazmat endorsement background check? TSA Transportation Security Administration. The feds want to make sure the right people are handling high-risk materials. Let's keep going. How often must the TSA threat assessment be renewed? Every 5 years. Security clearances have to stay fresh to ensure ongoing safety. Next question. Who is ineligible for a hazmat endorsement in New Mexico? A person who is not a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident or has certain felony convictions within 7 years. There are strict rules on who can hold this specific endorsement. Let's move on. What are the 9 hazard classes? Class 1 explosives, Class 2 gases, Class 3 flammable liquids, Class 4 flammable solids, Class 5 oxidizers, Class 6 toxic, Class 7 radioactive, Class 8 corrosive, Class 9 miscellaneous. Knowing these 9 categories is the foundation of all hazmat work. Next point. What is the hazmat table in 49 CFR used for? Identifying materials by proper shipping name, UN numbers, hazard classes, packing groups, and label requirements. Think of this as your master reference sheet for every chemical you might carry. Let's keep going. What is the proper shipping name, PSN? The official name in the hazmat table used on shipping papers, markings, and placards. You have to use the exact terminology for every load. Next question. What must appear on a hazmat shipping paper? Proper shipping name, UN number, hazard class, packing group, total quantity, and 24-hour emergency contact. All of this information is vital for first responders in case of an incident. Let's move on. Where must shipping papers be when the driver is in the cab? Within immediate reach in the seat or door pouch. If you have an accident, you or emergency crews need to find these papers fast. Next point. Where must shipping papers be when the driver is outside the vehicle? In clear view on the driver's seat or door pouch, visible from outside. The documents must be accessible even if you aren't at the wheel. Let's keep going. What is required of the emergency contact number on a shipping paper? Monitored 24 hours by someone knowledgeable about the material and able to provide response guidance. You can't just list an answering machine. Someone who knows the chemical must be on the line. Next question. What is Chemtrec and what is its number? A 24-hour chemical emergency response center at 1,800,424,9,300 providing technical guidance. They are the industry standard for emergency assistance with chemical spills. Let's move on. What is the National Response Center, NRC, and when must it be called? The Federal Center at 1,800,424,8,802 notified immediately when a reportable quantity of hazmat is released. The NRC coordinates the federal response for significant environmental incidents. Next point. What is a reportable quantity, RQ? An EPA-designated amount that if released requires immediate federal notification. Every substance has a specific limit that triggers a call to the NRC. Let's keep going. What does RQ before a material name on a shipping paper indicate? The load contains a hazardous substance at or above the EPA reportable quantity requiring notification if released. Seeing RQ means you are carrying enough of a substance to require federal reporting if it spills. Next question. What are placards and what size must they be? Diamond-shaped signs at least 10.8 inches per side placed on all 4 sides of the vehicle identifying the hazard class. These are the big signs that warn the public and responders about what is inside your trailer. Let's move on. On how many sides must placards be displayed? All 4 sides, front, rear, and both lateral sides. No matter where someone stands around your truck, they should see the hazard. Next point. What distinguishes a placard from a label? Placards are large 10.8-inch diamonds on the vehicle labels or small 4-inch diamonds on individual packages. One is for the whole truck. The other is for the specific boxes inside. Let's keep going. When does a Table 1 hazmat require placarding? Any quantity, even a single package regardless of weight. For the most dangerous materials, weight doesn't matter. You always placard. Next question. When does a Table 2 hazmat require placarding? At 1,001 pounds or more present in the vehicle. Most common hazmat only needs a placard once you carry more than 1,000 pounds. Let's move on. When is the dangerous placard used? When 2 or more Table 2 categories total 1,001 pounds and no single category individually requires its own placard. This is a handy way to simplify mixed loads that aren't individually over the weight limit. Next point. What does PGI indicate in the packing group system? Greatest danger requiring the most stringent packaging. The packing group tells you exactly how volatile or dangerous the substance is. Let's keep going. What is a poison inhalation hazard PIH material? A gas or liquid toxic when inhaled requiring a toxic inhalation hazard placard plus any other required placard. These are substances that can kill just by being in the air around them. Next question. What is the ERG and where must it be kept in the vehicle? A publication for first responder guidance kept in the cab accessible to the driver at all times. The Emergency Response Guidebook is your play-by-play book for accidents. Let's move on. What does the orange section of the ERG contain? Materials listed numerically by UNID number cross-referenced to guide pages. This is where you find the specific safety instructions once you have a material ID. Next point. What does the green section of the ERG contain? Initial isolation and protective action distances for toxic inhalation and water-reactive materials. This part tells you how far back to clear the area to keep people safe. Let's keep going. What is the correct action when a hazmat leak is found during transport? Stop safely away from people, notify emergency services, and follow ERG without attempting personal repair. You are there to drive and isolate the scene, not to fix the leak yourself. Next question. What New Mexico-specific reporting is required after a hazmat incident? Immediately notify the NRC at 1,800,424 in New Mexico State Police if a reportable quantity is released. New Mexico wants its state police informed as quickly as the federal authorities. Let's move on. What New Mexico-specific concern affects hazmat transport on certain routes? Extreme heat in summer can increase vapor pressure in tanks and affect certain flammable and reactive materials requiring extra precautions. The New Mexico sun can change the physical state of your load if you aren't careful. Next point. What applies to hazmat vehicles crossing into or out of New Mexico near the Mexico border? Drivers must comply with USCBP inspection requirements and may be subject to additional screening at border crossings near El Paso and other ports of entry. Border areas mean extra layers of security and paperwork. Let's keep going. Where is parking a loaded hazmat vehicle prohibited? Near flames within 300 feet of tunnels, bridges, or buildings, and near crowds unless an emergency exists. You don't want to park a bomb on wheels near critical infrastructure or lots of people. Next question. What attendance rule applies to Division 1? 1.1, 2 or 1.3 explosives? Must be attended at all times by someone aware of the hazard and able to move the vehicle. You can't leave high explosives sitting alone while you grab a burger. Let's move on. What is the minimum convoy distance between vehicles carrying Division 1? 1 explosives? At least 300 feet. If one truck has a problem, you don't want the other one to be caught in the blast. Next point. What hazmat route requirements apply in New Mexico? Federally designated routes, NMDOT approved corridors, and local authority routes with certain materials restricted from tunnels, bridges, and urban areas. Always plan your route using a hazmat-specific map before you start the engine. Let's keep going. What is notable about I-40 and I-25 for hazmat drivers in New Mexico? These are primary hazmat corridors with weigh stations and inspection checkpoints where NMDSP regularly checks compliance with hazmat regulations. Expect to see a lot of state police presence on these major highways. Next question. What is a local emergency planning committee (LEPC) in New Mexico? A community body under EPCRA coordinating local hazmat emergency response carriers may need to notify the LEPC for certain shipments. These local groups make sure their towns are prepared for any spills. Let's move on. What is a security plan and who must have one? A written plan required by 49 CFR for carriers of high-consequence dangerous goods covering personnel en route and shipment security. If you carry very dangerous loads, you need a plan to keep them from being stolen or sabotaged. Next point. What are high-consequence dangerous goods (HCDG)? Materials that could cause mass casualties if weaponized, including certain explosives, toxic inhalation hazards, and radioactive materials. These are the most sensitive loads that require the highest level of vigilance. Let's keep going. What must a driver do if the shipment appears tampered with? Do not move the vehicle, notify law enforcement and the carrier immediately, and follow the security plan. If something looks wrong with your seals or trailer, stop everything and call for help. Next question. What is the compatibility rule for loading multiple hazmat classes? Certain classes must be segregated because they react dangerously. For example, explosives cannot be with corrosives. Mixing the wrong chemicals can cause a disaster before you even leave the dock. Let's move on. What must a driver do if asked to load incompatible materials? Refuse the load, as regulations prohibit transporting reactive materials together in the same vehicle. Safety is your priority, even if it means saying no to a dispatcher. Next point. What fire extinguisher is required on a New Mexico CDL hazmat vehicle? At minimum, a 10 BC extinguisher or 2 5 BC units in the cab accessible to the driver. Hazmat requires more firefighting power than a standard commercial truck. Let's keep going. What is the penalty for hauling hazmat without a valid endorsement in New Mexico? Federal and state fines, CDL disqualification, and possible criminal charges. Losing your career and facing jail time is not worth the risk of an illegal load. Next question. What is the maximum federal civil penalty for a serious hazmat violation? Up to $102,348 per day per violation. The 2026 rates are high to discourage anyone from cutting corners on safety. Let's move on. What does a white diamond placard with a black propeller symbol indicate? Class 7 radioactive material. That symbol is the universal warning for radiation. Next point. What does a red placard with a white flame indicate? Class 3 flammable liquid or Class 2 Division 2. 1 flammable gas depending on text shown. Red is the color of fire. Be extremely careful with anything that can ignite. Let's keep going. What does a yellow placard with a flame over a circle indicate? Class 5 Division 5. 1 oxidizer. These chemicals don't just burn. They make everything else burn much faster. Next question. What does a white placard with a skull and crossbones indicate? Class 6 Division 6. 1 poison or toxic material. This is a clear warning that the load is deadly if touched or inhaled. That wraps up the New